Yeah, but so it's 2 o'clock. I think we can start. Welcome everybody to this first regional AKIS Stakeholders Workshop organized within I2Connect project. My name is Līga Cimermane. I'm representing EUFRAS, and today I will be your moderator and technical assistant for this meeting as well. So please note that we are recording this meeting and some parts might be made available after event. So if you don't want to be visible, please keep your camera off and microphone muted. I kindly ask you to use chat forum for your comments and questions in plenary session. They will be brought to speakers by me according to available time we have. If we won't manage to cover all questions during this meeting, we will make a summary and try to publish all remaining answers to our project website in I2Connect. So please feel free to check it out in the coming days, because there we will also be publishing all the presentations and outputs from today's meeting. And as I mentioned, this is the first of planned 4 regional workshops, and today we will be focusing on Northern Europe countries. 4 of them, Estonia, Ireland, Latvia, and Netherlands, will be presenting their AKIS reports as input for our joint discussions in breakout groups. I won't go into details about it now, but we'll leave our work program in chat for you to review and follow up closely. And without any further ado, I would like to give the floor to I2Connect project coordinator Sylvain Sturel from French Chambers of Agriculture to give us a little background information about what I2Connect is really all about. And for any remaining questions, please write me direct message in chat. And thank you once again for joining us today. So Sylvain, the virtual floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Līga. So I'm going to give you a brief introduction to I2Connect. A very brief introduction because we have a very busy schedule today. I2Connect is a Horizon 2020 project. It is a coordination and support action. Its general objective is to boost interactive innovation to support the transition of agriculture and forestry to more sustainable systems in the context of the climate change, of course, of threats on the environment, and of course of the necessity to ensure a sufficient income to farmers and foresters. So what do we call interactive innovation? Interactive innovation is a specific form of innovation which addresses challenges which are faced by local actors, farmers and foresters, which has no simple solution and which is co-constructed with these local actors. Interaction processes are very important in interactive innovation. There should be collaboration. There should be also different types of actors involved. Of course, farmers and foresters, but also advisors to facilitate these processes, also companies, also researchers, public authorities maybe. So it is a multi-actor type of innovation. So that is a short presentation. It is more complex. Then we have, of course, more precise objectives in I2Connect. The first of these objectives is to strengthen the skills of advisors individually. A second objective is also to strengthen the role of advisors in the wider AKIS. Of course, even if advisors are very well trained, if there is no enabling environment, they cannot really achieve their objective of supporting interactive innovation. So the management in advisory services should be facilitating, but also the more general context, public policies, relations with education institutions, with research institutions, and so on. And a last specific objective is to build up a European-wide network of innovation advisors, because we believe that this network will develop peer-to-peer learning among advisors and among other innovation actors, and will help also to exchange good practices from one country to another. So because we have that objective of creating a European-wide network of innovation advisors, we have also a very large partnership in this project. So in total, we have 42 partners, including third parties of main beneficiaries, coming from 21 countries in Europe. So we have a good coverage of European countries. And in addition, we also involve 4 European networks so that overall we can cover all European countries and neighboring countries of the European Union. So the project has already started in November 2019 and will finish in October 2024. So we are more or less at the middle of this project. So on the next slide, I just wrote the main activities which are carried out in I2Connect. There are more, but these are the central activities. So first of all, we try to better understand AKIS. And this will be one of the main topics today in this workshop. To do so, we have produced 27 country reports, which are available on our website. We are also trying continuously to find and to review practical cases in interactive innovation support. So far, we have collected almost 130 practical cases across Europe. You can find them all on our website. And we have reviewed in depth 10 of these practical cases. And we tried to draw out some good lessons from these practical cases, what we called best practices in interactive innovation support. So obviously a central activity of I2Connect is to design and carry out training courses. So far we have trained about 45 trainers of advisors, and we have trained around 100 advisors, but we are aiming at training almost 600 advisors across Europe. So we still have a lot of work to do. We are also developing a toolbox for different target groups. And an important activity also is to develop a database of innovation advisors and advisory organizations, which will help farmers to find an advisor with appropriate skills, but also public authorities who would like to involve advisors in some regional or national scheme, or maybe in EIP-AGRI operational groups. And it will also help advisors to connect with each other, to exchange about their experiences. And last but not least, we are trying to network innovation advisors, taking the opportunity of training courses to create groups of advisors, but also workshops like this one, and also conferences, which are still upcoming. And we are, of course, going to use the database to increase the size of this network. So maybe I did not mention very clearly what are our target groups. Of course, our main target group are active advisors, but we are also targeting trainers of advisors. We are targeting future advisors, I mean students who are still in agricultural universities. We are targeting managers of advisory services and the public authorities who are developing policies to encourage innovation support and encourage knowledge flows in the AKIS. So I don't want to be too long, so I'm going to give the floor back to you, Līga. But I would like to encourage all participants to have a look at the I2Connect website to check our new reports and deliverables, and also to register in the advisory services database to be kept informed about activities of the project, being invited to training courses or other activities which will take place in the near future. So thank you very much, and Līga, the floor is yours again.
Thank you, Sylvain. So if you have any questions for Sylvain, just bring them into chat, and if not now, then we will for sure answer them in future. But now I would like to give the floor to Inge Van Oost from European Commission, DG-AGRI. And with help from Inge, we will try to seek and answer the question how to better integrate advisors in AKIS thanks to new common agricultural policy. So welcome, Inge.
Thank you. I have to wait a little bit to share my screen. Okay, now it works. Good. Okay. Okay. So good afternoon. Nice to be with all you and to give a small introduction for what looks like a very interesting program. Just to set out the scene and the boundaries about what is AKIS and where does this interactive and innovation fit in. I hope you share the screen. You see the screen? Everything okay?
Yes, it's all.
Okay. So these AKIS strategies.
I'm so sorry, but it's not the full screen, so we can see the other slides as well. Okay, that's fine.
I know. I do it on purpose because I assume you are having a big enough view. You see everything. You can read everything.
Yes.
And then I can keep an eye on the Zoom part too. Otherwise, the Zoom part disappears on my other screen. So I do it on purpose.
It's okay.
Okay, for those who would not know it yet, AKIS is everybody, organizations, persons, whoever who is using and producing knowledge and innovation. So that's many people, farmers, foresters, advisors, researchers, NGOs, networks, education, retailers, media, all kinds of services, ministries, policymakers, you mentioned it yourself, they all produce and need knowledge. And we want to encompass them in a big national and, of course, also regional innovation ecosystem. There's a brief where you can learn a little bit more about. This slide is explaining the A of AKIS, because there's a lot of misunderstanding that it's only agriculture, but I want to emphasize that it's whatever farming and rural activities automatically relate to. So that could be landscape, environment, climate, biodiversity, consumers, citizens, links to rural areas, food and non-food chains and systems, also the distribution, the processing, everything is involved, and we cover all the 9 CAP objectives in this way, including also social innovation. The A just comes from the past. We don't want to change it because then people start thinking that it's something new. It's really from the researchers that felt that the usual research was not working enough, was too linear. People were not enough involved to also give their input. And that's why we started with this interactive innovation model that we apply in EIP projects, but now also in AKIS. And why in this CAP period, in the former CAP period, we put in place AKIS. Now we add on top of that, in the former period, we put in place EIP innovation projects. And now on top of that, we add AKIS for the simple reason that we want to have even more impact, not only impact in the project, but impact broader beyond that to speed up knowledge flows and knowledge exchange. And most of all, of course, the more people who know all these practical solutions, the more it will be implemented into practice. And since projects are always time limited, we felt that building a permanent structure of AKIS where people see each other regularly will also help from there to start up projects, whether they are operational groups or multi-actor projects or any other project. It's good to keep close and not work in silos. Our principles are the same as for EIP. It's collaboration at an equal level. Everybody is equal. Choosing for whatever solution you want to make the relevant actors. It's not the more the merrier, the relevant actors, to make the best use of complementary types of knowledge in view of co-creation and quick spreading. That's then the result. If you get your end users involved, your solutions will quicker spread and be more ready to implement into action, into practice. And we support that also with our EIP network. And here you can see the bigger picture with, on the one hand, our operational groups, which are smaller. Well, in average, they are 380,000 euro. That's not really small, but compared with the Horizon projects, of course, from the research funding, there we are talking about at least 2 million and could as well be up until 20 million. So those projects are really a lot bigger. And we connect those two through the EIP-AGRI, where everything is collected. All the projects have their short summaries there, the connections, who are the partners, an easy way to find them, emails, telephones, etc. So we have all this in the database in a unique knowledge repository for practice. And this is, of course, to spread the results. And we have another connection between the two, not only through the network and through the database, but also through, in our multi-actor project, the simple sentence that we ask them to involve as much as possible strongly recommended operational groups. So this is my last slide about the past. What did we achieve until now? Almost all member states, except Luxembourg, so far, in this period have implemented the EIP. There were 3,200 groups planned, from which we see on the website about 2,200 visible, because the obligation is only to publish when the project is finished. In our guidelines, we said, look, this is not handy, please come forward earlier. And many did. We already have 2,200 visible operational groups. But there are more than those. We've seen that in the annual implementation reports. And they have still 4 years to go. It's N+3, so at the end of 2020, there is still 3 years that they continue their projects. And in this small extra period that we had, 21-22, there were many new operational groups started up. And we have further good news. We were happily surprised to see in the CAP plans that so far we counted for the next 5 years. You compare, in fact, with a period of 7 years here. For the next 5 years only, we already have about 6,500. So it looks as if we would go multiplying by 2.5 or maybe a bit more up until 3 the number of operational groups. So lots of opportunities for advisors to join in. And we also give this in our observations in the CAP plans that it's strongly recommended in all these operational groups to get advisors in because of their specific effect that they can have. We will talk later about that. In this first period of Horizon 2020, we had 190 multi-actor projects for 1 billion euro. So already now we have a growing and thriving network and also an increasing volume that we need to manage. All this practice knowledge we need to manage. That's why, let's first explain what will happen under Horizon Europe. Now we are embedded in Cluster 6. And the multi-actor approach is now applied for as well natural resources or circular economy or biomass, oceans and waters. So it's much broader than only the agriculture as we did in the current period or in the past period, I must say. And we have there for 7 years the double, in fact, of funding to be spent. So we have lots of opportunities. And we have mainstreamed now in this whole cluster 6 for all these different destinations, as they are called, the multi-actor approach. We have strengthened it and streamlined it. Strengthened by making it an eligibility condition. So if you are in a multi-actor project and you don't fulfill what is here on the next slide, and I will not read all this, these are the must-haves, these are the multi-actor requirements. So if you don't fulfill that, you are not even eligible to be a multi-actor project. A few figures to show that we're doing well also on the horizon side. So in 2021, we had, in terms of topic, 34% of the topics, in terms of budget, 37%. And already in 2022, we're going to 53% of the topics who are multi-actor of all these different destinations, not only agriculture, as I said. And also the budget share goes to around half of the project. So we're very, very pleased with this. We have a few typical projects types, let's say, that are useful to support AKIS. We will develop an EU-wide knowledge reservoir for practice. We will help member states to build their AKIS by bringing them together, learning from each other. That's the project Modern AKIS. The knowledge reservoir is called Farm Book. Then here, this project is also already selected. It's called Attractis. And there it's about learning from innovation support. And here I mean the real grassroots, not all types and varieties of innovation support, but what is now obligatory in the regulation is this capturing of grassroots innovative ideas. So a farmer with an idea, or whoever with an idea, helping him to look for information, look for partners, make a nice plan, make a cooperation agreement, and develop a good proposal that then can be selected as an operational group. So we have a project here because we've seen the possibility was always there under the CAP to support that. But in fact, there were not so many practicing innovation support services over Europe. And we will now try from these with experience to open this up to the whole of Europe through this project. Then I skip this one because that's a bit more, doesn't fit so much in my story here. We have a new approach, which is thematic networks, as you might already know, but they must be built on operational groups. So it means you have to have at least 5 operational groups from 3 different countries, and they can, if they have a common team, make a thematic network and work on their common team, and maybe get a few other experts in, and they get 3 years instead of 2 years in the past to work on this team and to develop further. And the estimation is that then again, new operational groups will start from this horizon thematic networks built on operational groups. Of course, we keep our well-functioning classical thematic networks where any project can come in. I had a lady on the phone this morning on plastic waste. Well, okay, that's a subject we didn't have yet. That is of worry. We had 19 operational groups. We were looking in the website, on the DG-AGRI website. So it is of concern for farmers, definitely. There are already so many operational groups, so they could go together and go for a thematic network in this way. And then you are one of the first EU advisory networks where we put from the different countries in the EU advisors together. We have one, and that was in fact, I think, the very first one on digital advisory tools, Fair Share. Yours is on interactive innovation, I2Connect. There's one that is now, two that are now just evaluated and will start, well, around summer, let's say, on short supply chains. We have for the future 2023 call, 2024 calls. We will have on organic and on pesticide use. And for the 22 call, which has just closed, there's one on water use. So you see plenty of opportunities there to have things that can support the national AKISs through interlinking via these advisory networks, via these thematic networks, and sharing the information across the countries. This is the big idea behind. And also our EIP database, we want to improve so that we just not only have the contacts and these short practice abstracts of 20 lines, but everything which is produced on all these websites and gets lost after the projects stop. So we are preparing there an EU knowledge reservoir for practice. And this for you as advisors will be really very useful because it can serve for back offices with specialist advisors who can help for innovation support or for advice, who can help in fact any AKIS actor across the country. And of course, also the innovation strand of the CAP network. And the prototype that was developed in Eureka looks like this. And this will be continued in Farmbook, a project that will run for 7 years, in which the 2 first years will be focusing on finalizing the IT tool. And then more and more connecting with the AKIS coordination bodies, the AKIS platforms in the countries, to refine, to see if they are interoperable, if things have to add, also to promote the use of it, that people know that it's there, that they can use it. And these are a bit the assets that we have asked to make. First of all, making sure that we can have a good, smart search filter with some ontologies behind, not just a keyword search, a literal keyword search, that it is multilingual, so it will be in 24 languages, which we don't have on the EIP website for now. That for each of the projects there's a possibility to give comments, because in this way we can start up practice communities around certain themes, which then can deliver further interaction within the AKIS in the country or beyond the borders. We have asked also to give likes so that we can see which projects, which outcomes are having a lot of effect. And this is in particular important also for the researchers to be rewarded so that their bosses can see that what they do for practice is really read and taken into account. And then, of course, if you're collecting all this material, you also have lots of things you can feed into education, training, etc. So this is where we are going in the next 7 years. So you've understood what is the big change. EIP projects, we only funded the projects. Now we're going to AKIS, which would be a whole innovation ecosystem where it systematically interlinks on a regular basis, on a structured base, people and projects. Important to know, because our EIP still has the old title, Agriculture Productivity and Sustainability. We cover all the 9 common CAP objectives, meaning ensuring viable income, competitiveness, balance in the food chain, so the more economical objectives, but also the environmental objectives of climate, environment, landscapes, biodiversity, and the social objectives, rural areas, generational renewal, and the link to citizens and food and health quality. So there's plenty more things that you can do with operational groups now than in the past. And the AKIS is automatically also covering all these objectives, and they will all end up then in a bigger variety in our knowledge reservoir and in our EIP database. 2 slides just to give you the background of the regulation. So we have an article which is called Modernization, that says that advisors, researchers, and CAP networks, because we see them as the cornerstones of a good working AKIS, have to work together and deliver then more competent advice and innovation support. Then, particularly for the advisors, we want them to be as much as possible, and I will give a few examples later on, integrated within the AKIS. There's an obligation, by the way, that all countries have to have advisors in their CAP plans. So this is a clear obligation that we see that a few countries misunderstood. And all advisors should then be able to cover not just the focus on cross-compliance, but really economic, environmental, and social dimensions. And in particular, with all this knowledge coming through the CAP networks and the EIP database, up-to-date information from scientific and technological sources. The advisors now really have to be impartial, which is logic if you use public funding, and able, this is an obligation, to provide innovation support. In particular, it says for preparing and implementing operational groups of the EIP-AGRI. Now we take a little bit of time to go into the detail about how these farm advisory services can be integrated in the AKIS. I think, first of all, just to put the big scheme, I think there are two key things. It's this innovation support under form of an innovation hub, like a one-stop shop, or maybe mixing with other specialist hubs that maybe are more sector-oriented. The key is that we want to capture grassroots ideas, and whatever type of innovation support service, whether it's a mixed model or a one-stop shop model, for us that's not important. If it happens, that's what's important. And then also the knowledge hub, and we see that really in all the CAP plans. I was very happy to see that almost all countries foresee such a knowledge hub, which then can serve as a back office with practice language collecting on all kinds of themes, so back office for advisors. So these, in my view, are two key elements for the CAP plans that will support integration of advisors in the AKIS. Of course, regular interaction with advisors will be important in workshops, in meetings, in on-farm demos, where they can all join up with farmers and advisors and researchers. Being located in the same building helps. Informal contacts is useful. I already spoke about this back office with specialist advisors. Some countries already have very good experience with that. And they can support not only field advisors, but anybody who needs some specialistic advice in relatively simple language. I mean, not scientific language. Also, this participating in operational group project is extremely important, because there's lots to learn also for advisors there, and vice versa. Advisors can learn their things to the others from their practice experience. And also advisory networks, region-wide, country-wide, and as you've seen, we also do it European-wide. There's an obligation for training for advisors. And there we are looking to a sufficient amount of days that are obligatory per year.
Inge, we are a bit conscious of the time. So
yeah, I'm skipping a bit through then. The ideal way to find these advisors, and that's why your database is so important, is to have public registers with explaining education, experience, etc. Not using accreditation or certification anymore, because we have very little EU obligations and it's really not needed to do that. This is just to show you that for the time being, this period, we only had 9% advisors, and I would be very happy if this could go to 50%. So let's hope. This is all the roles that farm advisors can take in our operational groups, from capturing practice needs up until the dissemination. Helping also to formulate practice abstract, because they understand the language of the farmers, so they can better draft this than sometimes the scientists can. As I said, innovation support, two things are obligatory, the brokering and the facilitation. And then, of course, you can do much more in promotion, coaching, brainstorming events, having a prize, etc., etc. And this is then a list of real technical type of interventions, like they would appear in CAP plans, what advisors can do, training of advisors themselves, back office work, a mobility budget to go abroad to learn, to provide innovation support, to lead thematic networks, to lead on-farm demonstration. And of course, this is just a few of the possibilities which can happen. So we go towards the end. We also have our CAP networks supporting us, but I leave that to read. And I think we already are a bit overcoming the fear of change. I feel that the section 8, which is the AKIS section in the CAP plans that I'm reading now, is often really well done. So I think we really start working, and it gets into the minds of people, which was 2 years ago really hard work to make them understand what was AKIS. Don't forget that in the SCAR report you can find a lot, and that we also have, I almost skipped it, a very interesting seminar. Everything is recorded, and you can have an innovation support service, examples of advice, examples of AKIS interventions, etc. So there's lots of material there, and the link here down in the slide. So this is my final slide. We hope in this way that we will speed up creativity and practice application and better connect everybody to circulate information. Thanks a lot. I don't know if there's time for questions, or else we can do it later on or in the chat.
Yes, thank you, Inge, for this comprehensive information. We will share it with the participants also at the presentation, so you will be able to learn more about it. And I kindly ask you, because of the time concern, I ask you to write your questions, please, in the chat, and we will continue with our program. So, as already mentioned by Sylvain, in I2Connect, we have prepared 27 individual AKIS country reports, and I would like to invite Andrea Knierim Sangeun Bae from University of Hohenheim to present your preliminary results from AKIS cross-country analysis and the role of AKIS in general. So, please, Andrea and Sangeun, the floor is yours.
Hello, and good afternoon to everyone. Good afternoon to the organizers, to our coordinator, and to Inge Sangeun and me. We are really happy to give you some short insights into what's going on in I2Connect with respect to AKIS analysis. This very closely connects to what was just presented by Inge. We have some overlap. This will help us to be a little bit shorter on some parts. And then we can go more deeper into the findings that we have. So we are talking about this I2Connect project that was already mentioned, and the focus on the AKIS, which was realized through having conducted AKIS reports in all the partner countries, actually in all member states, plus Switzerland and a number of the Southeastern Balkan states. Now I think Sangeun will try her very best to make it happen.
Yeah, I would.
Otherwise, I could share my screen.
Just a minute, I should be able to sort this out.
Yeah, that's fine.
Do you see the main screen?
Very good.
Okay.
Yeah. So then I will be very short on the general basics of the AKIS concept and on the key features of a well-functioning AKIS. I think this is also a good input into the breakout group discussions later, and then Sangeun will come up with the results from the project. So please, next slide.
Andrea, just a minute. I see just 1 minute. Always these, just 1 minute.
Yep, it was fine. Sometimes to forward it in Zoom, you need
always see. Yeah. Okay. Now I think I have it.
Okay, I think we can work with that also. We have now the PowerPoint mode. No, we don't see it, Sangeun? No.
One more try. Let me see now.
No.
No.
This is your your personal screen.
Huh.
Yeah, what about if we use my PowerPoint?
You see now? Still.
Yes.
Always on the day of the presentations.
Yeah, I think if you now choose then the PowerPoint mode as Inge did it, then we will use that one.
Yeah. Okay.
Not yet.
Do you see it now?
Yeah, we see the PowerPoint presentation. You can maybe skip
now. Yes, now?
No, it's your the presenter mode now.
It's a bit okay. So then let me see. Should be a part where I can switch the screens.
Yeah, you can switch that.
Okay. Now finally, I hope. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's okay. Now it's okay.
Phew.
Okay.
Go ahead, Andrea.
Okay, we have already heard largely what the AKIS is, and I just want to emphasize that it is a concept. It's an idea about how reality is organized. And on the right-hand side, you see two graphs that represent what we think an AKIS is. The first graph is the older one. You can see AKIS as structured by subsystems like research, extension, education, and of course in the center are the farmers, and there are also support systems. And then below, please move forward, below you see a more recent version of how to represent an AKIS. Actually, there is a number of overlaps, like there are farmers, education, research, and extensionists, but also from left to right, you have the actors that are engaged in the value chain. So from the private sector, entrepreneurial people, and also in the back is a number of support services like media, like banks, and so on. So with these two graphs, you can imagine this is just one illustration how diverse our understanding of AKIS can be. Please, next click. And what is important is that in some perceptions, an AKIS is more a kind of a network, yeah? So it's something that operates through interaction, while you can also have a more structural perspective, like in the upper part, for example, where you think of existing organizations that make their whole organizational life over not only 1 year, but several years or even decennies. So my first message is the AKIS concept is a certain idea about how the knowledge realities and the innovation realities are organized. And there are, please next, there are several things that can support that such a system functions well. So, of course, it's important that political decision makers, that policies are right. And we just heard that now AKIS is embedded in policies and EU policies. So this is a very strong support to having well-functioning AKISs. This means that now actors are ready to dedicate resources to it because it's somehow feasible. And we see well-functioning AKISs where various influential actors, so people, organizations from the various subsystems engage for an AKIS. And they may engage at the national level, like national ministries, like general associations, national level associations, and or at regional levels. A third important aspect is our coordination mechanisms. So what are coordination mechanisms? These can be organizations and or institutions, regulations, or for example, as we just heard, these CAP networks can imply coordination mechanisms if they organize, and for example, a regular way meetings and exchange. And then there can be effective formal linkages among the various actors that show how exchange happens. This can be, again, newsletters, social medias, all kinds of linkages and knowledge flows, you know. Finally, what is all about? It's all about reaching farmers and other actors in the green sector, of course, in a wide range that come and that move towards a more sustainable agriculture and natural land use and natural resource management. So also we move to the next slide very briefly. You can click it through because Inge has already given an overview of what the AKIS, how the AKIS evolved throughout the past years within the EU, emerging from a new focus on advisory services and now establishing a more comprehensive understanding of how the various actors co-act and co-create meaningful knowledge. And the important thing to my view is really that here we have both pillars, the research pillar and the rural development pillar in the DG-AGRI, who have realized this very, very supportive move to mobilize so many funds for promoting more knowledge for agriculture and the green sector. So with this, I hand over now to Sangeun, who will continue and present more concretely our work in I2Connect.
Yeah, so I will just continue from here. Like was already mentioned, as you are all aware, one important task and output of the I2Connect project has been to update the existing AKIS inventory for the EU state, and not only update, but expand for new countries such as Croatia, Serbia, Switzerland, and Montenegro. This, of course, I would say was a really huge feat that was made possible by our AKIS project partners. I see a lot of them here today. So a big applaud to them once again. So in essence, what we really try to do is try as much as possible to follow a unified or a structured approach. So basically, there were four main things. First, what we wanted to do was to identify the main AKIS actors and describe their roles. Secondly, based on this, to represent this diversity and also the linkages among these AKIS actors, do a schematic diagram, which you would later see in our discussions. Thirdly, we wanted to describe also the general AKIS environment. So, for example, policy and funding mechanisms and other coordination mechanisms. And lastly, we also wanted to zoom in a little bit on the advisory service sector and characterize the different advisory service providers in each of our partner countries. So as a concrete output, we now have 27 AKIS country reports that were based on more than 100 AKIS expert interviews and survey results from over 500 respondents that are involved in various advisory service provision. These are all available on our site, and I believe Līga would also share this. So if you're interested but have not yet seen these reports, we welcome you to visit our homepage. Yeah. So now I would like to briefly present some of the preliminary insights emerging from the cross-cutting analysis of all 27 reports. It's still very much a work in progress, but just as an overview of first insight. So the first thing that we looked at was the organization and governance of the AKIS. And here we see that in most of the AKIS countries, AKIS is governed more or less at the national level, which we refer to as the centralized AKIS. Now, opposite of this is the decentralized AKIS, where the AKIS governance or part of it are within the jurisdiction of the regional authorities. And we see this in countries such as Spain, Belgium, Germany, and Italy. Now we have these two countries, Austria and Switzerland, where we found rather more a mix of centralization and decentralization. So in the case of Switzerland, for example, we see more or less a centralized system, but still a certain degree of decentralization, especially with regards to education and advisory services, which historically has been shaped by the federal structure. Now, another feature to describe an AKIS is the diversity of its actors. And here, what we did was based on how predominantly the AKIS actors and their roles were described in the individual country reports. We try to provide more or less an overview across the partner countries. And here we see one obvious pattern, that is here the presence of the public authorities, research and education, and pharma-based organization in almost all the country AKISs. Now, in contrast, the presence of the third sector and also the private companies, these vary across the countries. But in a lot of the countries, we also see quite an increasing visible presence of the private sector. Now, looking more at the country level, we see that for a few countries like the ones that are highlighted here, we see all 5 categories that are quite prominently featured in the AKIS, and also quite a remarkable diversity even within the individual AKIS subsystems. Now, another characteristic of a well-functioning AKIS is whether farmers are being reached adequately by various advisory service providers. Now, here, the predominant type or mix of the different advisory service providers really vary across the countries, as you can see in this diagram. But just to highlight a few, here we see, for example, that in quite a number of countries, the public advisory organizations are still the predominant structures to reach farmers. So in Croatia and Serbia, for example, we see that the Ministry of Agriculture with its subordinate agencies are the sole structures that are reaching farmers. In Austria, we see that the chambers are even considered the backbone of the Austrian AKIS. In the Netherlands and Greece, we see private advisory as the predominant structure reaching farmers. But here we also see that in some other countries where this is the case, there's this changing role between the public and private agencies. So in Portugal and some states in Germany, for example, we see that the state or regional public advisory organizations have more or less withdrawn to playing mainly a coordination and regulatory role, and leaving the provision of advisory services to the private advisory companies. Finally, in countries like Germany, Italy, and Spain, and also Slovakia, we see rather a mix of these public, private, and FBOs. Now, the next feature that we looked at was whether AKIS supporting policies with dedicated resources are in place. And of course, not surprising, in many of the reports, the European Agricultural Fund for Rural Development was described as the most prominent policy support of the AKIS at the national level. Now, in some countries, we also see that in addition to this, there are multiple other national policies and funds to support AKIS. So in France, for example, the state apparently provides financial support to AKIS actors through various multi-annual programs and thematic policies. But what we observe is that in general, when these national policies are in place, they are mainly oriented towards either research and innovation, or they focus only on one AKIS subsystem. Of course, we expect that this would change with the new CAP, where AKIS will be more funded and supported in a more planned and holistic manner. So this we would see. Now, in terms of AKIS coordination mechanisms, we could largely identify two broad categories. So on the one hand, we have these coordination mechanisms that have been established in relation to EU policy. So here we have the National Network for Rural Development. Then there are these others that are in response to national policy programs. So here we see very diverse structures such as councils, thematic platforms, alliances, working groups, etc. Now, as a final feature of the AKIS, we looked at the degree of linkages among the various AKIS actors. And this, of course, was really a huge challenge, first of all, because there is quite a diversity in the way the linkages between the AKIS actors were reported and represented schematically by the AKIS authors. But to highlight just a few of the general observations that we see, first of all, we see that there are stronger linkages between these farmer organizations, vocational education and advisory service providers. Only a few countries reported good linkages among all the actors. So here we have Belgium, Czech Republic, Denmark, France, and the likes. We also see that frequently these vertical linkages are more stronger compared to horizontal linkages. And lastly, more obvious, I would say this point, the linkage between science and practice seem weaker compared to, for example, with other AKIS actors. With that, I would now like to highlight just a few insights from the survey now that we did on the advisory service provider. So now we're zooming in from the overall AKIS picture to the advisory service sector. Here, to just give you a very short background, we analyzed a total of 511 respondents with roughly about here 44% forming the freelance advisors and 56% from advisory organizations. So here, advisory organizations in the broader sense of the word. So not only those organizations whose sole mandate is to provide advisory service, but also these other organizations with an advisory component. And as you can see here on the right, our respondents from these organizations were quite diverse in their affiliations. Now, as a first result, we have here the scale of operation in terms of geographic outreach. And here we see that there are quite a difference among the various categories of advisory service providers. So for example, when you look at the government-based or the FBOs and the freelance advisors, for example, their outreach is very much at the sub-regional and regional levels. Whereas, for example, when you look at private NGOs or research-based organizations, their outreach goes a little bit further to national and even international levels. And I think this is particularly interesting because it kind of shows the various different interests and focus of various types of advisory service providers. And this, of course, would have implications, for example, when we want to find advisors to participate in these multi-actor projects or to join the advisory service database, for example. Now, when we look specifically at the freelance advisors, we see predominantly male advisors working full-time with quite a number of years of experience in advisory work. Here, I think it was the median that was calculated. So on average, about 18.5 years of experience. In terms of educational levels, we see that majority have engineer degrees or master's degrees, so quite highly qualified. In terms of topics that were most in demand by the clients, we see here a high popularity for 5 main topics, which is not too surprising. So here we have entrepreneurship and farm management, rural development support and diversification, support with grant application and compliance, agri-environmental stewardship measures and nature conservation, and production technologies. Now, this would be one of my last slides. So lastly, in terms of the proportion of time that was dedicated to advisory activities, we see quite a difference among the various categories here too. So when you look at, for example, the private-based, the commercial-based organizations, NFBOs, they spend a greater proportion of their time on targeted consultation services, not too surprising. For universities or research-based organizations and government-based advisory organizations, we see that in addition to this, they also spend quite some time on teaching and training activities and information dissemination. We also see that they are all quite also involved in innovation support activities, but to a varying degree. So for example, NGOs seem to spend a little bit more time on these innovation support services than the rest. I think, yeah. So these are just a preview of some of the insights that are emerging. There are still a lot of material for the survey results, which we hope we would be able to present some other time. So with that, I would now like to give a more or less first conclusion or summary, because a deeper one would require more systematic review. And in as much as we try to follow a unified approach, the individual reports were really different in terms of their content. So it's quite a challenging task, but for the time being, some first conclusions that we can draw are that there is a good resonance of the AKIS concept among the interviewees in the partner countries. Secondly, there is evidence for greater institutional diversity of our AKIS actors. Thirdly, there is the growing presence of coordination mechanisms that are aimed at facilitating collaboration of AKIS actors. Fourthly, that with the advisory subsystem, based on our survey results, we see that there are also differences among the different categories of service providers. And lastly, in relation to this point, we have varying degree of involvement in innovation support activities. So with that, I think I was really fast, but I hope we're able to give you a bit of insight into the work that we have been doing so far. And with that, I would say thank you very much. And yeah, please visit our website for more information on the individual country report. Līga, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Andrea and Sangeun. Very interesting presentation, and I hope it will spark the discussion in the breakout rooms that we will have. Maybe any clarification matters, questions that participants have, maybe we can still quickly. If not, then we can move forward to the part where these 4 countries will present their AKIS country reports. And now I would like to give the floor to Hanna Tamsalu from Estonian National Rural Network Support Unit to present Estonian report. So thank you, and Hanna, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everybody, and so nice to see so many names, familiar names. I cannot say that it's familiar faces, as the faces are not shown all the time. I hope that my presentation or review or some insights from the Estonian case do not conflict the conclusions from Andrea and Sangeun, but I'll try to keep it as clear as possible. So let's go to the presentation. Yes, I'm Hanna Tamsalu. I'm from Estonia and from the National Rural Network Support Unit. This unit is located under the umbrella of Agriculture Research Center. And I would like to say that the information given for this report is not only about the survey which was conducted through the I2Connect project, but also I use several previous resources from the background of myself from Ministry of Agriculture, from the Knowledge Transfer National Study, and also some interviews of EURACNOS and Eureka project, and from the evaluation support which was presented or conducted for the whole European Union. So some short information about Estonia. You know, this is one of the most smallest countries of Europe. Of course, Luxembourg is smaller, but 45,000 square kilometers. We have 1.3 million inhabitants, from which 60% is urbanized and 40% lives around the capital city. I believe this is one of the biggest challenges for agriculture in Europe in total. The number of farms is decreasing. The farms are growing bigger and bigger. There is 14,000 single area payment applications, but the number of actual farms is, of course, smaller. We have approximately 100,000 private forest owners in addition to that. Next slide. What is happening? It's not showing the pictures. Something is wrong, but still, I will say it. You will have to see it afterwards. I'm having troubles to remember what I did want to say here.
Try to click some space or something.
Yes, I tried to do that. That I was not expecting.
Go one page and yeah, back and forth.
Oh dear. Never mind. I will skip it very quickly. The agriculture, we have more than half of our land is covered by forest. We have more bogs than we have urban areas. The main gross added value is coming from forestry sector, and the main source of total output value comes from dairy. I believe this number will decline in the future years. Okay, this one works. The main characteristics of Estonian AKIS is that we are a small country and a lot of our actors know each other. So we have already very close contacts, and in very different formats. There are several measures to support financially the cooperation or knowledge transfer or advisory services. And the advice is given both by the private and both by the supported advisory services. There is no central hub for agricultural knowledge and information exchange, but there are some hubs for fisheries and for forestry. In addition to universities, to vocational schools, to public authorities, in the agricultural sector, the main provider of advisory service is Rural Development Foundation. There are several organizations which are non-governmental organizations. The farmers' organizations are non-governmental organizations which provide knowledge in different formats. There are private advisors, and the influence of input sellers and cooperatives is also big. Regarding the fisheries, there is Fisheries Information Center, but they do not provide advice. This is more for the knowledge transfer and for the research activities. The local action groups are active and some producer organizations also. For the forestry, the main organization is Private Forestry Center. We have also Private Forest Union, which is non-governmental organization, and local private forest associations, which are either non-governmental organizations or cooperatives. But in the future, the Private Forest Center will be emerged to Environmental Information Center. Let's see what will happen in the future. Yes, this picture was shown by Sangeun. I did not took too much time to make it more, the design more fluent. So this picture really is like it was supposed by the project. You see the several colors here, and you see the solid lines and dotted lines, but do not make this as a very big conclusion from that. There is so much mixture in the picture. For example, the farmers' unions, the local farmers' unions are the members of different chambers. The forestry organizations, associations, and also forest unions are members of different chambers, different organizations. National Rural Network is located under the organization which is called Research Center, but actually our activities is not related to research. So this is a nice picture. It doesn't show a lot. For the funding, the fisheries and aquaculture is funded through a European Maritime and Fisheries Fund. There are cooperation support, there are training support, there is research support. For the forestry, there is mostly state support for forestry knowledge exchange and also forestry advice, but there is some mixture from the funds from Common Agriculture Policy. The Common Agriculture Policy is mostly known for all the participants here. I will not take too much time for that, but I really want to say something about innovation clusters. Usually, if you might look at DG-AGRI service points website, you see that Estonia is white spot. It seems like we don't have any operational groups. Actually, we have, two of them. All the activities for information, which can be said, is very likely, very similar to all the European EIP operation groups, are combined under the innovation clusters. The clusters have several small activities, which are almost the same as the operation groups in other countries. So again, some statistics cannot be trusted. For the knowledge transfer, we have had small projects in previous times, but now we are also going there to the long-term knowledge transfer programs. And so there will be only one knowledge transfer program for the agricultural sector for the whole Estonia. And we will point out all the leader action groups actions, which are also for the knowledge transfer, and the activities of our organization, National Rural Network Support Unit. This picture is quite common for all countries. Of course, the small and medium scale farms are the biggest target group, and young farmers and new entrants. The advice can be categorized to three groups. Individual advice, of course, a lot of that happens in farms. Also, group advice is a lot in farms or during demonstration and exchange visits. Compared to Ireland, probably, the webinars are the number of webinars is smaller, and also the advice through digital apps is smaller, and social media is also, the amount is smaller, as we are afraid that the digital information can be used in a wrong way, the false information there. We are the country which certifies advisors until now. I hope it will change in the future, but who knows? As the main activities are happening in the forestry sector, advisors are mostly certified in forestry sector. There are a lot of economic advisors, the blue spot here. And the Minister of Rural Affairs stated that, of course, the farmer can choose him or herself which kind of advice he or she will use, the supported advice through certified advisors, or private advisory services, which is unregulated. The picture of cooperation. It was somehow also a surprise for me that they named that EU projects have some share, weak one, but yes, regarding the knowledge, some cooperation is happening there. The public authorities, the connections are there the strongest. Work time and skills. A lot of time will be spent on information dissemination group activities. There are consultation service and innovation support services. Yes, this blue spot is about innovation support services. But what do the advisors and the organization think what will happen in the future CAP? The organizations think that advisors need mostly facilitation skills, networking skills, of course, and also brokering skills. But advisors themselves think that digital skills, they are the lacks. Our advisors are aging rapidly. The young advisors, young people are recruited by the agri-businesses, the input sellers. But the satisfaction level with advisory services is very high. 90% of foresters, 98% of farmers, and 87% of food processors is happy with our current advisory skills or services. This is the last slide. And conclusion is, although I have seen 2 European level reports that in which it states that Estonian advisory service is weak, I believe this is not correct. We are the small country. We have several connections and several activities, and we have not needed the central coordination there. We have eyes on the EU because we are a small country. We have to learn a lot from others. We cannot expect that everything will be researched within our country. There are several support measures, and there is high dependence on this support. Okay, public image on agriculture sector. You know what it is on this picture, I believe. Everybody thinks that agriculture is all about dirt and manure, and this why it's hard to find youngsters willing to come to work in agriculture. I believe this is the common case in Europe, and advisors are aging because of that. Of course, advisors have to have some competencies, some background knowledge. The need for AKIS operating body is not about coordinating the actors so much, but coordinating the information flow, about collecting the information into one spot shop, as the newcomers do not know yet who to contact. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hanna. Very interesting presentation. And yeah, is there any clarification questions? So maybe it's time to ask them, but the main discussions will take place in the breakout rooms. Okay, if no more questions, then I would like to invite Mark Gibson from Teagasc to present us in Ireland's AKIS country report. Hi, Mark. Nice to see you.
Hi, Līga. Now I'm just sharing my main screen with you now. Can you see that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay. Well, look, thanks again for the invitation to present here today, and lovely to see so many familiar faces. So I'm going to just give an overview of the country report from Ireland, and I just want to acknowledge the original author of the report was Paul Maher, who has since moved into a different role within Teagasc. So it's a collaborative effort today. So many of you have been to Ireland before. We're a small country, 5 million people, and one of the things we like to boast about in Ireland is that everybody knows everybody, that or else you'll find somebody that you know that's connected to you. So it's a very close-knit community, similar to the way Hanna has described Estonia. There's a lot of strong networks there. But agriculture in Ireland is a very important part of the economy. We have 77.1% of total employment, 14.4 billion in gross value added. So very, very export orientated market within Ireland. And we export food products to over 180 countries across the world. So very important part of the Irish economy. And of course, livestock is probably the main type of activity within Ireland. So we have about 135,000 farmers, averaging at 3.4 hectares each. We have 5.5 million sheep and 7.3 million cattle. So there's more cows than people in Ireland. That's the way it has worked. So grassland is the predominant crop here, and we have about 10% of the country is covered with forestry, which is a stubbornly low figure for the country. We do want to try and increase that over the next number of years, given the climate challenge. The main ownership of farms in Ireland is men, 86% of men and 13% female owners. And of course, the age profile, like many other European countries, is quite high. We have a lot of farmers, over 30% are over 65, and then 7% or so below the age of 35. So you can see here in this graph that about over 50% of the food farming systems in Ireland are dedicated to specialist beef production. So that's producing Irish beef largely for export. So about 90% of our beef produced in Ireland is exported, and likewise similar figures with our dairy. So about 11% in total specialist dairy farming, and then the remaining is we can see sheep still making up a good share, and then the other more specialized cropping, very small percentages. We're likely to see some increases in those figures over the next number of years because the government has realized that maybe we are a bit over-reliant on imports in terms of grain. So there's some specialist packages being put together for tillage farmers to increase the amount of tillage being produced in Ireland. I'm not going to focus on this. We've talked pretty much about the age of farmers in Ireland. So the average income in Ireland is approximately, family farm income is around €26,000. And you can see by far the most profitable of all of the enterprises is dairying. So there's a lot of farmers looking at dairying and moving into dairying from beef farming systems because it is the most profitable. However, there are big concerns in relation to the emissions from the livestock sector in Ireland. That's probably one of the biggest challenges facing the sector at the moment. So there is a climate action program that has been implemented last year, which means that there will be legally binding targets, limits for greenhouse gas emissions from all of the sectors. And agriculture has a reduction figure of between 20 and 30%, which is hugely ambitious. But one of the differences with Ireland from some of the European countries I've seen is that we have a Food Vision 2030 strategy developed, which brings together all of the different AKIS actors to look at saying, how can we develop a shared vision for the sector? And it's taking a food systems approach. So looking at a very holistic approach to food production up and down the supply chain. So it's a 2030, it's a 10-year strategy and involves all of the different stakeholders and has various missions and regular actions that all of the government agencies have to, the relevant government agencies have to implement within their plans. So I mentioned climate challenge. You can see here very clearly that almost 40% of the emissions within Ireland are coming from agriculture. So it's a really stubbornly high figure, and the vast majority of those emissions are coming from methane emissions or enteric fermentation from animals. So there's a lot of work, a lot of research going on, but also a lot of advisory effort going on to implement new technologies to reduce emissions from agriculture, particularly the types of fertilizers that farmers are using. So we can see that there have been some increases recently. These figures are from the Environmental Protection Agency. So just taking a look at the AKIS study that we're all familiar with this pro-AKIS chart at this stage, and it appears that Ireland is at the bottom, but actually it's quite a positive that we're viewed as being powerful, strong, powerful AKIS and highly integrated. I think that is a fair reflection of how the level of cooperation that's happening in Ireland. And this is a graphic interpretation of the Irish AKIS that we produced a number of years ago. It's by no means a proportionate representation of the various different actors, but it does help us when we're looking at the various different actors that are involved and the connectivity that's there between Teagasc and the remaining, the rest of the AKIS. And this, I will qualify this chart. It's very much a Teagasc view on the world. So we just, for ourselves, wanted to look at how we relate to the other parts of the Irish AKIS. So you can see here the connections here with the universities, obviously the farm bodies is a hugely important relationship there, and obviously the professional services that farmers rely on. And we're constantly looking at how we can develop services and supports for all of those different AKIS actors. So we'll pull this in throughout the presentation. So farm advisory in Ireland, Irish farmers have a choice to engage with an advisor from the public, private or industry sector. So industry, I mean some of the dairy co-ops or some of the specialist tillage sectors. It is estimated that there are a similar cohort of private advisors active in the Irish AKIS as there are in Teagasc, so approximately 300 full-time equivalents. In addition, there are approximately a further 200 advisors available to farmers through the suppliers and other service industries that supply services to farmers. And the Agricultural Consultants Association that represents the interests of a cohort of the private consultants. And I see that Breen Carroll is joining us here today from the Agricultural Consultants in Ireland. A substantial component of the Irish AKIS lies within Teagasc. So Teagasc undertakes activities in research, advisory and education. So we have 7 agricultural colleges and 52 local advisory offices across the country. And we are an independent source of scientific information for all Irish farmers. The 137, I think, was the figure I mentioned at the start. And then extending that to the 10,000 full-time equivalents of professionals that are supporting the sector and provide services to the wider AKIS. And we coordinate over 100 demonstration farms, and we deliver accredited training to 5,000 learners each year. And then we have an annual advisory contract with over 45,000 farmers. So this is just a graphical representation. We have 12 different, our advisory service is divided into 12 different regional advisory areas. And we have also, it was mentioned earlier on, we have subject matter specialists or knowledge brokers. We have 45 knowledge specialists that support and work with our advisors and that they act as that interface between the research part of our organization and the advisory and education parts of the organization. So we have 45,000 farmers who are fee paying, but then we have contact with a wider cohort of farmers through our events and our publications, etc. So a lot of our focus is on fostering innovation through the integrated research at farm advisory and education programs that we operate. And in practice, that operates through internal working groups, regular communications, and joint programs are a really important part of the work that we do. So working in collaboration with industry. And one of the more recent collaborations that we've established is called the Signpost Farm Program. So it's a network of 100 demonstration farms supported by a research program, but it is in collaboration with industry. So I think there's nearly 50 or 60 different industry partners involved in that. And we see that approach really effective in terms of getting out coherent messages across the AKIS. And that's a really important for us in Teagasc, that we've developed that coherency in messaging across the different sectors. So as I said, we have strong linkages across the agri sector, and we roll out a number of national campaigns. And then, of course, training is important. And so the Teagasc Connected program has been developed to develop capacity across the Irish AKIS, not just with farmers. Well, it's not targeted at farmers. In fact, it's for non-farmers, those supporting services and professionals that are working with the Irish farmers farming sector. So digital tools for AKIS actors are really important, such as nutrient management planning tools and financial management tools. I'm not going to focus too much because we're tight enough on time. So in terms of funding, the public advisors are funded by a mixed model of funding where individual farmers will pay for direct services in a similar way to that of the private advisor. But then public advisors also collect fees for provision of education courses. Funding from industry allows the public advisors to dedicate time and resources to joint industry initiatives that are relevant to both parties. So that Signpost program, not only are industry partners involved, but they're actually putting funding on the table to support these types of programs in relation to water quality and also climate action. Government funding of Teagasc comes through the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine, and allows public advisors to deliver a public good programme of information and events on a range of industry-wide public good and sustainability challenges. So these are some of the topics, very similar to what Hanna would have presented earlier on, but these are the types of areas looking at farm succession, right through to technical topics, and diversification, of course, is a really important one that we're going to see over the next number of years. There are additional services provided by the private sector, and these range from preparation of tax accounts, auctioneering, assisting farmers with the legal matters, and compulsory purchase orders and other analytical services. And some private and industry advisors specialize in areas such as the supply of detailed agronomic advice closely linked to the supply of inputs, and a number are also heavily involved in EIP projects. Looking at just the training that's provided to the AKIS in Ireland. So through Teagasc, we have developed a connected program which provides training programs, publications and online tools to private consultants, banks, accountants, all of the different parties involved in the Irish AKIS. We also have the Teagasc UCD Masters in Agricultural Innovation Support. This is a master's program for agricultural graduates in advisory techniques and innovation support. So that is a 21-month program that where young advisors would work with Teagasc for a number of years and study at the same time and get their qualifications at the end of it. And then the SECRA program, we're delighted in Teagasc to have rolled out very successfully the SECRA program in Ireland, where we've had over 300 advisors now engaged with the program over the last number of years, dealing with the areas of innovation, brokering, networking, facilitation skills, all of the really important skills that are required for advisors to engage with the AKIS. I'm going to share some slides with you that Patrick Barrett produced. Patrick is from the Department of Agriculture, is on the call today, in relation to the programs that the Department of Agriculture is rolling out under the CAP strategic plan and other measures. And I'm just, for time purposes, I'm going to focus on the first three here: CPD for advisors, the knowledge transfer supports, and then the AKIS coordination group. But there's also measures there around cooperation under DG-AGRI and the leader, and then the National CAP network and research. So if you want to find out more, just click on the link and it'll bring you to that event where that Patrick presented last month. So the CPD for advisors is coordinated by the Department of Agriculture as part of the CAP strategic plan, and it will be providing support and resources for the upskilling and the continuous professional development of both public and private advisors, and with the objective to enhance the knowledge base and ensure familiarity with the latest practice and techniques and regulatory and scheme requirements. So it's largely targeted at the FAS advisor network. So this will be delivered using a blended approach, using a combination of online platforms and developing the interactive innovation skill set. So we need to, I suppose, talk to the Department of Agriculture in Ireland and just to discuss the role of SECRA for those types of training, those training programs. And of course, agri-digitalization is a really important one that was mentioned earlier on. Knowledge transfer or knowledge exchange, as the more contemporary phrase, is building on the programs that were developed early on by Teagasc around discussion groups. And so this has been a very successful way for farm advisors to engage with farmer clients, and also really important networking opportunity for farmers in Ireland. So we're providing farmers with a platform to share knowledge and to engage in peer-to-peer learning, and targeting the key challenges such as climate change, water quality, and obviously profitability is an important one. So high quality and targeted advice will be provided to farmers through KT groups delivered by professional, so public and private advisors with appropriate FAS training. And there's significant funding allocated to that, and that's going to be rolled out over the duration of the next Common Agricultural Policy period. And then the AKIS Coordination Group. The AKIS Coordination Group is responsible for structuring and mobilizing actors around the various different challenges and creating consistent engagement to support modernization, innovation, and knowledge flows, and speed up knowledge exchange and implementation in practice. So I'm going to refer to Patrick later on if Patrick wants to comment on these slides. But there's some really good work being carried out by the Department of Agriculture, really ambitious plan within the CAP strategic plan there over the next number of years. So recently we engaged in or hosted a United Nations Food Systems Summit in Ireland. So last year we focused the dialogue on the AKIS, and some really interesting items came out of that discussion. Firstly, the importance of developing a shared vision for the agri-food sector was highlighted. You know, we need to be all pulling in the same direction. So the Food Vision 2030 is a great help for that. We need to engage with the wider farming population through the advisory services. So not just dealing with our clients, that we need to expand our connections with all farmers, because there are a lot of farmers in Ireland that aren't actually engaged with an advisor, either a private or a public advisor. So that's an important issue to tackle. And we need to use more multi-actor approaches in order to improve our collaborations, and broadening the scope of the AKIS to include rural areas, communities, and citizens and consumers. And that's something that we often forget, I think, when we're talking about AKIS. We sometimes look at just the certain confines within the AKIS, but the consumer is a really important part of the AKIS. So a number of actions we feel that need to be taken in Ireland over the next number of years will be attracting the best and brightest people into the AKIS. So these are considered to be strategic risks. Like Hanna outlined, there is an aging population of farmers, but also of advisors. So it's really important that we look at how attractive the sector is to getting the brightest and best people. Lifelong learning frameworks are really important across the AKIS. However, accessing them can be a challenge, because obviously somebody has to either pay for who pays for that lifelong learning, and where particularly if you're working in the private sector, you have to take time off work to engage with this. So sometimes that is perceived as a barrier. Digital transformation roadmap is required to ensure that we have the right digital infrastructure, people, and education. And I know there's a lot of transformation has happened over the last 2 years in response to COVID. And we need to develop ways to capture new ideas from branches of the AKIS. So how do we connect those different dots across the AKIS to capture really innovative ideas? So I think systems to capture that need to be put in place. And the Central Knowledge Hub, Inge mentioned it earlier on, the work that's going on with the EU Farm Book. We really need to ensure that there are reliable, independent and science-based knowledge hubs available for people to access. And of course, then finally providing an inclusive platform where ideas can be connected to the capacity to develop these ideas. So it's one thing having an idea, but actually connecting those ideas with the resources needed are really important. So I'll just finish up with a phrase. It's an Irish phrase. It's Níneart go cur le chéile. There's no strength in without unity. It's a really an old Irish phrase, but I think it's really relevant to our discussion today. So thanks very much for your attention, and happy to answer any questions afterwards.
Thank you very much, Mark, for this very comprehensive and interesting presentation. And due to the time concerns, maybe you could ask the answer the questions already in the chat because we had some, but I think move forward with our program. I hope you don't mind that we are a bit late, but it is very interesting to all of these presentations. So, but for now, I would like to announce a short break, 4 minutes, 4 to 5 minutes, and to have a coffee, and then I will be waiting you back at 50 past 3. Okay, thank you. So I hope everybody has managed to grab some coffee or water, and we can continue with the presentation of Latvian AKIS report that will be done by Anita Dzelme from Latvian Rural Advisory and Training Center. So Anita, are you with us? Okay, it looks like Anita is still after the coffee. I think we can wait a few minutes.
Yeah, yes, now I'm here. Thank you for waiting.
So, yeah.
So, yeah.
Whenever you're ready.
Let's just go. Okay, do you see full screen or?
Yeah,
okay, that's nice. Well, I'm Anita Dzelme. Previously, some of you know me as Anita Diabela, but yeah, I'm back in the organization. So, and then telling you about the AKIS report, country report of Latvia. Well, Latvia is in the middle of previously reported countries, Estonia and Ireland. It's 20,000 square kilometers bigger than Estonia and 20,000 square kilometers smaller than Ireland. And 36 of our land use is used for the agricultural lands, and 48% is forest lands. Agriculture, hunting and forestry and fisheries represent approximately 4% of Latvian economy, 16% of our external trade, and 7% of employment. And the share of all these is even higher in rural areas here in Latvia, and well, it could be about 20% of population in rural areas, which are included in agriculture, forestry and fisheries. In the end of 2019, in Latvia, there were 75.8 thousand agricultural holdings, and this number tends to decrease. However, the area of those holdings are increasing, so less holdings with bigger areas, and almost 80% of land use of agricultural land use in Latvia was the land was used, and on average, the country arable land takes up to 70% of agricultural area. The minister, I will try to tell you some information about the AKIS sectors, and the first sector is the public sector. The Ministry of Agriculture of Latvia is the main governmental institution responsible for the sector of agriculture, food and forestry and fisheries. And under the Ministry of Agriculture, there are working paying agency, controlling agencies, also the educational and research organizations, on which I will return later, and also the ministry is a holder of capital in such organizations as, for example, Latvian State Forests and also Latvian Rural Advisory and Training Center. Also, the part of the public sector is the Ministry of Education and Science, which is responsible for the policy of science and education. It works with scientific and technological developments and innovation policy and coordinates its implementation. Still, Latvian University of Agriculture. Now it's called Latvian University of Life Sciences and Technologies, is the only agricultural university in the state, and it's funded by Ministry of Agriculture, not Ministry of Education and Science. And the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Regional Development areas of activities directly or indirectly are connected to AKIS through global climate change, GMO-free territories in Latvia, green public procurement, then protection of species and habitats, regional development, soil quality, and water protection. This ministry is also overseeing municipalities, and these are also the actors since they are able to impact the development on a local level by closely cooperating with farmers, forest owners, and rural development actors, or they can choose other priorities. And autumn, which could sound strange as a public sector main actor, but it's a state-owned development finance institution which offers state aid for various target groups, which can help with the help of financial tools. Yeah, then agricultural advice in Latvia can be described as decentralized. Even the main agricultural advisory organization is covering a big part of the market. It still covers just a part of it. And there is an increasing number of public, private, and third sector organizations which provide direct or indirect advice. There are no coordination between organizations providing the advice, and there is no common certification or similar system which could indicate the most suitable advisors. Advisory services in Latvia are provided by several types of service providers. Some of them offer advice as a service. Some do not formally consider their service as advice, although the substance it is, for example, scientific institutions or paying and controlling agencies. And some call the service as advice, but essentially it's the sales of products, not the advice. Well, the biggest player in the market is Latvian Rural Advisory and Training Center, which is 99% owned by Ministry of Agriculture and 1% owned by Latvian Farmers Federation, and it works since 1991. And well, like a commercial, it can be divided in two parts: the public part, which ensures the state given tasks like Latvian Rural Network Support Unit and the EIP Support Unit, and the commercial part, which provides advice, vocational training, and we have 26 regional offices and 9 forest advisory offices in the state. And there's also private advisory organizations, for example, Integrated Growing School. Then there are freelance advisors. They must be of good reputation, of course, to advise individually. Then there are private innovators, like some farmers or individuals that are very active and creative. They find unexpected ways to develop their business. It being the primary in agriculture, for example, by growing unaccustomed species or using different methods, or secondary by processing agricultural produce. Often they are ready to share their experiences, and other farmers can just learn from them. Also, there are processors. Mostly the processing companies are interested in maintaining constant quality of production, thus they provide some kind of advice or even experience exchange visits for farmers. Also, one of the players are sellers. Farmers, especially commercial farmers and cooperatives, rely on the advice and technology of sellers like agrochemistry companies, agricultural machinery companies. These companies, they associate advice with marketing and organize demonstrations. The companies need strong advisors as a marketing tool. No no money is required for the advice, but the advisor essentially performs the role of the sales representative and makes money for the company in that way. Also, there is DG-AGRI, which is an international company which claims to give independent agricultural advice. There are 3 advisors in Latvia, and the company bases their advice on advanced artificial intelligence-based decision support toolkits. And the main AKIS actors, such as farmers' organizations, there are several types of those in Latvia, and legally they all act as NGOs or cooperatives. There are farmer-based NGOs, and the biggest you can see on the screen, and they are these NGOs also participate in the advisory council of non-governmental organization, which mainly is like they have a seat in the Ministry of Agriculture, where they can provide their input and where they can lobby their interests in the Ministry of Agriculture. There are also sectoral-based NGOs, such as Latvian Goat Breeders Association, for example. And these organizations mostly do not provide advice directly, but act as information exchange point for its members. From time to time, these organizations organize some seminars, trainings, and during those farmer-to-farmer advice is ongoing. Also, there are 50 cooperatives in Latvia. I think 35 of them was on dairy, and then others. Then research and education. There are 62 research institutions registered in Latvia, and 22 of them are public research institutions funded by government. The main actor is Latvian University of Life Sciences and Technologies, and it implements several study programs such as agriculture, forestry, veterinary medicine, woodworking, biomaterial-based construction, electric energy based on use not the word for me today, and then water purification and distribution, and water and land resources and management. Also the nature tourism, for example. Then there are registered institutes not directly funded by the state, like, for example, Baltic Studies Center, which is a non-profit research organization and works a lot with agricultural studies, and Latvian Academy of Agricultural and Forestry Sciences. Then under the Latvian University of Life Sciences and Technologies, there are several research institutes and research stations, and also 10 vocational schools work as the part of University of Life Sciences and Technology. Although officially scientists and trainers of the university do not provide advice, but only scientific support, advisory support for farmers, foresters, and entrepreneurs in a form of call or short email is not denied, and most often without any remuneration, so they are not paid for it. And advice is based on knowledge and enthusiasm of scientific and teaching staff. Also, the vast majority of all mentioned scientific institutions, I mentioned above, offer scientific services, but scientific institutions such as BIOR, Silva, RAE, or some others provide also a specific advice, mostly through demonstration and paid services. Then our scheme of cooperation within Latvia looks like this. As you can see, well, we are the provider of this report, but also we see ourselves as one of the central players. We are, well, working very closely with farmers, and they mostly, very often are the first place they are coming. Also, I don't know if this needs some further explanation, since the connections can be seen. And for example, farmer-based and non-profit NGOs play a big role through the advisory council I mentioned. They're also in the private sector, sellers and processors have a big impact. And in research and education, the mentioned University of Life Sciences and Technologies plays a big role. Also, there is agricultural media and banks, which were not mentioned by me previously. And this is like a forestry AKIS of Latvia. The players are different, and connections are different, but I'm not looking at it very closely in this presentation. Then about the policy programs and coordination structures. Government via Ministry of Agriculture, Education and Economy leads the innovation system. It develops the innovation policy and monitors the implementation of innovation programs and provides funding for the research. Then the Ministry of Education and Science works on scientific and technological developments and innovation policy and coordinates its implementation. Then the employment system sounds strange, but it is also a part of AKIS, since the Ministry of Welfare draws up the state policy to reduce unemployment and participates in the development of employment policies. And also the trainings there sometimes touch the agriculture and rural economics. And then there is agricultural education, which is led by Ministry of Agriculture, and I already told the information about that. About the finances, in Latvia, most of the agricultural and rural development aid is provided under CAP, mainly through single hectare aid and under the direct payment scheme. Rural development plan supports knowledge transfer and information activities and advisory services through different kinds of projects. And innovation is also promoted by the support of RDP for cooperation and participation in working groups in the European Innovation Partnership, or EIP as we know it. About the advisory topics provided in the advisory organizations, organizations participating in the survey are funding their activities from several sources. Two of organizations are funded only by cost recovery from farmers' fees, but the bigger ones are also funded by the public financing, state and EU. And here you can see the coverage of the advisory topics provided, and the bigger, those who are working as advisory organizations are covering quite a lot of the topics, but those who are working as freelancers, for example, just cover the very, very small parts of topics like crop production, food production, environmental solutions. And the organizations with advisory component, which mainly are the sellers, mostly offer the advice on crop production and farm machinery. And yeah, about the most demanded cross-cutting topics, well, of course, it's entrepreneurship and farm management, production technologies, and also support with grant application is used very much in Latvia. Within farmers. About the frequency of client groups, when analyzing target clients of the freelance advisors, it can be seen that mostly of these are stable clients paying the costs Organizations, however, are funding the part of their activities not only from cost recovery from farmers, but also from public funding, both national and EU project funding. Therefore, they are able to work and are working with those clients which are not yet stable enough to pay their own fees. And also, well, it's a nuance of the rural development, since different rural actors are targeting for diversified development. So we have to provide the different kind of advice, not only agricultural, but also different others. And the education level of farmers and freelancers, well, like all of them have the higher education. And I don't know where I wrote the 92% of those, but yes, most of the actors have the higher education and are working. And as for the capacity building, well, mostly in the smaller organizations, it's through funded mostly by the organization itself, but in bigger organizations, it's also different projects and EU funding and so on.
Sorry, Anita, can we move forward a bit quickly?
Yeah, in fact, this is the last slide about the further development since the report. The year is gone since then, and the Ministry of Agriculture has set Latvian Rural Advisory and Training Center as AKIS contact point, and we are now working on its function stocks and participation activities. And there was also last year a conference of AKIS actors with discussions and working groups on the team, and also the United Food Systems Summit 2021 mentioned already by Ireland. We also organized this event in Latvia, and also we are participating in the new project, Modern AKIS of Horizon. Okay, so thank you. I tried to be fast, but I think I didn't meet my goal, so I'm sorry.
No, it's very interesting, and I hope that participants don't mind that we are a bit late. But please, Anita, also have a look in the chat, and there are some questions. But now I would like to invite Peter Paree from ZLTO, the Netherlands, to also give us an overview of the situation in the Netherlands. So Peter, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Līga. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, very clear.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Well, I'm working at the farmers organization in the southern part of Netherlands, and I'll introduce you into Dutch AKIS. The context of Dutch farming is export. Really, we are very much focused on export. But if you look at in the European context, 76% of it is staying in Europe. So we call it export from Netherlands, but we are really supplying most of it to Europe. This export orientation needs rerouting. We need to get involved in the other parts of society, and that asks for the specific attention in the AKIS. The AKIS now is not very fit for that. We are fragmented, as you see in the Pro-AKIS report. We are strong, but really it's fragmented because we have chosen really a commercial focus, which is causing that many organizations can jump in, can give advice to farmers, but they are really scattered in their advisory work. If you look at the innovation support, that this image already shows it's quite diverse. you have all kind of subsidies that come to the farmers. And in fact, what you see in practice, the farmers don't coordinate that themselves, but the yellow circle is the advisors around them support them to make at least some use of all those funds and all those innovation support. The AKIS picture of Netherlands, of course, the farmers are at the center. Just below them, you see the advisory services, which are farm advisors. The accountants in Netherlands have a strong role because every farmer has to do bookkeeping and come in with the bookkeeping reports every year. Veterinarians are important, and the commercial input providers are also the most frequent contacts for the farmers. Of course, the farmers feel most linked to their organizations, and around this you see education in yellow, you see the governmental organizations in blue, and you see different NGOs that are negotiating with the farmers' organizations or sometimes with the farmers themselves. I come back to this image. What is now making a real change is the SABE vouchers. So the ministry gives vouchers of €1,500 per farmer to support advice, independent advice. So it made really a turning point from commercial advice and projects to public responsibility, and that's quite new, and that's a lot of thanks to European regulations, where they say farmers need advice to get innovative. And what the farmers advisors do, they every advisor puts a nice picture on it, and they say you get free coaching with this regulation. It's organized centrally. In a registry you can find where the advisors are, and you can choose on specialization, on working field, and they are all in the registry of the independent advisors organization. But there is a second voucher system, and that's for advisors, and it's only for nitrogen now at this moment. So it's not only for farmers, the voucher system, but if you look at the thick arrows, the farmers get those vouchers, the advisors get vouchers also. The advisors give their services to the farmers using those vouchers, and universities of applied science, they give trainings to those advisors. So this is the starting point of a more comprehensive advisory service overview. If you look at farmers' organizations, in the traditional way of looking at every innovation start at science, and then advisors come and they give it to the farmers. But what we think as ZLTO, we think farmers have solutions because they are in the middle of practice, and they combine entrepreneurial power, financing opportunities, and innovation. So they bring it all together for climate safety, rural development. That's my introduction. I try to catch up a bit.
Okay, thank you, Peter, very much for this. Do we have any clarification questions to Peter from the audience? Okay, if not, then we can move into the breakout groups. I will shortly. So, do you see my screen? Yep. Okay, so we will have two breakout groups. The first one will be for the Netherlands and Estonia. Of course, other participants from other countries can join as well, according to their preferences. And the second group for Latvia and Ireland, where we ask the authors to join. But we will have two moderators who will moderate this discussion between you. So we will have as we are a bit behind the schedule, we will have 20 minutes for discussion and then a short time to report back in the plenary. So I will now create the breakout groups. Just a sec. And all participants can choose. I will try to recall them again. So, and the moderators in the breakout rooms then will welcome you and tell you more details about it. Yeah, if you can see, then the first group is the Netherlands and Estonia, and the second Latvia and Ireland. If you have any problems joining the group, just let me know. Are there any questions on how to join the group or?
Yes, Līga.
Yep. Okay, Inge, which group you would like to join? And then
well, it doesn't matter. Let's say maybe Latvia.
Okay.
Should it happen automatically? Ah, voila. I see a join now. Okay.
So, anyone else who needs assistance?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to go with Latvia and Ireland. I'm Miriam.
Yeah.
I don't see any. I don't see any link. Yes, thank you.
Hi, Līga. Please help me. I'm Agnes, and I would like to participate in the group, second group, Ireland and Latvia, please.
Mm-hmm. So you should.
Thank you.
I would also like to join group 2, but how can I do that myself here on Zoom? I don't see an option.
When you down there is breakout groups, and then you can choose the group you would like to participate in.
Oh, breakout rooms. Okay. No. Oh yeah, group 2 join. Thank you very much. Okay.
Hello, Līga. My name is Goda. I'm from Lithuania, from the Ministry of Agriculture. I would like to also have your help. I would like to join group 2, Latvia and Ireland.
Yep, just a second. Yeah, now
Thank
it should be.
Much. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Līga.
Hello.
Eleni.
Hello. Hi.
Could you please join me with the group 2?
Yeah, just a second.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, anyone else who would like to join the groups?
Hi, Līga. Yeah, it's Kieran Gannon. Could I join group 2, please?
Yes. Just a sec.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. What about other participants? Would you like to join one of the groups? So maybe I will distribute, so you can, if you would not want to participate, you can at least listen to the discussion. And,
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you hear me?
Yep.
Magardich, can you add me to some of two groups? I can't.
To the second.
Yeah.
Yep. Just a second.
Yeah. Thank you.
Back to basic.
Yes. So welcome back, everyone. I hope you managed to have some good discussion, and I would like to give the floor to Marianne and Sangeun from the first breakout group for a short feedback, if we can.
Okay, Sangeun, can you please share the screen? So we had a really intensive discussion and really had a lack of time, but in these 20 minutes we managed to answer some questions. About Estonia's strengths, Estonia AKIS strengths, it is a flexible AKIS, and there is an interest of the researchers to share practice to farmers. So they have many parallel events. Currently, they are working on creating a knowledge database or reservoir. So Netherlands experience can help them with that because they already have a knowledge basis. So that would be that could be a share of experiences. Weaknesses of Estonia: very high dependence on public funding and very high dependence on project funding. Also frequent structural changes, they said, every 7 years, so they do not have a stable system. And the Netherlands strengths are high specialization and high education. Also these developed knowledge reservoirs and also national research taking the role of coordinating the AKIS. And also, as I remember, they have these vouchers that help independent advisors to share their knowledge and to work. Weaknesses of Netherlands AKIS could be a lack of information exchange between organizations. There are so many organizations in AKIS, but maybe there is a lack of information exchange. And of course, for both Estonia and Netherlands, the lack of young advisors. So advisors are getting older, but also we have to think that the older advisors and experienced advisors are also needed. What other participants said in this discussion, that we can learn also a lot from Estonia and Latvia about forestry, and that we can learn from each other about dairy farming. Estonia emphasized that they will learn from Irish system of training of advisors, and that is for that part. It should be emphasized that, as Hanna said, Estonian advisory system was partly built on the Dutch AKIS system. So they will also, yes, I said this, they will learn from Ireland. there is in Estonia there is a interesting issue about researchers researching what farmers need. So farmers go to researchers and ask them to do some research, but this is not regulated payment. So many times researchers do this pro bono, but this really contributes to knowledge exchange. And I think this is all. I'm really sorry for not being consistent, but I couldn't prepare myself. I didn't have really time.
No, great, Mariana, thank you. And we will summarize, of course, the outcomes afterwards. So with Ran and Sladen, how it was in the second group?
Short, too short to write everything down.
Yeah, it was too short. It was like speed dating. I don't know. It was too slow. And at the very beginning, since I don't want to disappoint Sangeun, who prepared all these materials very well. My proposal is, since it was quite a lack of time, and both presenters, Mark and Anita, they said that after the presentation they could give better insight. Maybe we could ask them to give their opinions post festum and to share these PowerPoints, so they can give their opinions, what they can learn from each other, and what Ireland can take from Latvia and vice versa. So maybe we should update this after this workshop with their opinion. A brief information about the breakout group 2. In short, both systems are quite strong. Ireland system is much more integrated, but what is the common advantage, what the common strength of the both system? That is the possibility to reach diverse needs of farmers and end users. That means the flexibility and innovation, and I think that is quite important. While Ireland system is very strong in sharing the knowledge and in the collaboration, the Latvian system relies on the strong farmer associations, and that is one of the very important strengths. And also, what Tom stressed out, the tradition is one of the important elements of these two efficient systems. Okay, when talking about the weaknesses, you can see just a few of them were regarding the Latvia. That is a relatively low number of the research institutes dealing with agriculture, and that could be connected with the research and the transfer knowledge to the rural population. And Tom also mentioned the different sources and a lot of information without coordination and the checkout. That is not just for the agricultural newspapers. It is the situation with the social media, etc., etc. I have noticed also that everywhere, especially young farmers, are full of information, and they don't know what to do with them without filtering from the side of the advisors. Also, what is the most important, and that was something that I used Andrea to take part in the discussion when talking about both threats and opportunities. The most important challenge is to connect the research and farmers. So we also mentioned in our discussion the voucher system that is present in the Netherlands. So briefly, that will be a kind of overview from the breakout group 2. I would like to thank to all participants in our group, and to say that I'm sorry that they could not all participate actively.
Thank you, Sladen, very much. Maybe participants have something to add, or questions that you would like to still
If I could add one of the weaknesses there, and Inge interestingly picked up on it in the chat there, it's that the motivations for researchers to be involved in the knowledge exchange process, or that innovation process. Currently, we still have researchers, they're promoted on the basis of the number of peer-reviewed papers. There's very little weighting towards any activities in relation to knowledge transfer or knowledge exchange. So it is still a difficulty there. And I think until that changes, we're going to find it difficult to have that engagement there.
Yeah.
So, yes, maybe if I can add something, I understood that in Estonia it is very common that researchers are working directly with farmers. But yes, maybe Hanna could explain what is the incentive for researchers, because I didn't catch exactly the way it is organized.
I wrote something in the chat already, but really the researchers are humans. They are interested on farmers. They are interested to share their knowledge and also to get some information from farmers. What do their farmers need? But usually this kind of interaction is not supported by the research institute or the university, because this kind of knowledge exchange, it does not give anything for the formal accreditation of the institution. We saw the Spanish example in the DG-AGRI service points with AKIS seminar there. This is a really good way which to present to the Ministry of Education and Science that this kind of interaction is needed. I say that in Estonia, the knowledge exchange or interaction with farmers is on the human level. It's not official very much, but if the researchers are acting as lecturers or acting as advisors, actual advisors, they get some payment for that.
Thank you very much, Hanna.
Thank you. So Inge, you would also like to make a comment?
Yeah, I've been reading CAP plans on AKIS the last 3 months. So overall, we can be very happy that AKIS is well understood and a lot is undertaken, but it really stays overall within the agricultural remit. And what I had hoped that something would start moving, like in Spain, in the research world, is not happening yet. And I just wanted to emphasize that we probably all need to go home and try to change it, because it's not gonna happen overnight, apparently. With all respect of the very good efforts that are in these CAP-AKIS plans, because they are absolutely stunning. I would not have expected such a support for something completely new and connecting people who were not connected before. This is the only point that really annoys me, because I know how hard it can be. For instance, in Flanders this week, we even had news in the journal about professors mishandling their students to have as much as possible publications and bullying them. So the research world can be really very harsh, and I think if we can somehow convince the authorities who are managing those research institutes to do something for practice, and that we can also show that, of course, you need, that's what scientific publications do, you can count them. So I think we need something similar. well, any idea is good. I mean, I don't have any silver bullets there, but I think we absolutely missed something coming from the research side. There's too little moving in my view.
And Jan, you would like to comment?
Yes, just to add to Inge, it is how to organize it, but it's also how to get this strategy, to get this concept in the head of researchers. So it's not only about how to organize it, but also to get them involved by talking to them and getting this concept in their head, and to organize meetings with them, and to stimulate them, because they can learn a lot also from advisors and farmers. No, they can benefit from it. It's not that it costs time, but they can really benefit from it. You just have to show it to them, I think.
Yeah, but the problem is that they are not all let out. They have to stay behind their desk and read literature, and so first of all, their boss has to say, okay, go ahead. There's an on-farm demonstration that's really important and useful, where you can meet a lot of farmers and advisors, and it will give you inspiration for further work. But I don't see this enough, and maybe I'm impatient. Could be that I'm an impatient person, but it would be nice to see more moving there. And in contrast with the rest, where I see a lot moving, it's also because I see that the rest is really moving, and this is the only point where yeah, research needs to better understand that impact of what they are doing is more important than the number of publications. So we have to change a bit the mindset of people there. And I guess in some countries it's probably better than in others. I'm not saying it's everywhere equally equally bad, and it's also personal. Some and particularly the young researchers do like to work in operational groups, and they have this collaboration capacity in themselves. They have been taught different than we were. We had to learn what was in the course, and they have already, my sons learned problem solving in groups, so they had to solve problems in groups. So this is an excellent preparation for the later jobs they will go in, and also for working in an operational group to solve a certain problem. But as long as we have this scientific abstracts as the only measurement for researchers, I think we have to do something about it, really. Because we can't count on the goodness of some people doing overtime, and then they marry, they get children, and then it comes to the expense of their private life. This is not how it should be.
So Patrick, maybe the last feedback, as we have to still move on in the agenda.
Sure. So this is briefly some points from my perspective, trying to consider this point in Ireland. So one concrete thing we have done is we have a competitive research program that's within the Ministry of Agriculture, and we have, as a starting point, piloted a knowledge transfer element within the research opportunity. So proportionally, depending on the size of the funding instrument within that program, we task the project proposal coordinator to develop a proportional non-knowledge transfer work package. And the idea being there that they already start to work within their research activities with innovation intermediaries. And we use the state aid guidelines on research and innovation and its ability to kind of define that a person of innovation intermediary. The second thing then we're looking to do is we're looking to develop the national CAP network and the innovation hub within that CAP network to build on knowledge transfer steps that have been developed in Horizon 2020 projects as a model to sort of gather ideas, get interactions between scientists, farmers, and other people, and then to look to use those interactions to build up some specific development opportunities for, say, EIP-AGRI or operational groups or into leader or etc. So that's just the start of our thinking on how we need to develop this. And we also have been, one thing I think we need to reflect on is we also have been making comments into our national research and innovation strategy development, because a lot of times those strategies are developed from the perspective of regional development and not rural development. So they often don't understand the need to fund the type of multi-actor approaches that are needed to deliver for the agri-food sector and bioeconomy. So they're three things that we're active on at the moment, just in case it's useful for anybody.
Yeah. Well, in particular, what you first were saying is a bit what I had in mind, that there's some kind of obligation for any project that gets selected to have a package where there is interaction with practice. I think if every country could be doing that, I think we would move quite a lot ahead. And on your last point, or was it the second, I don't know, the interaction of what comes out of Horizon projects to operational groups, I would say this is bilateral. We also have operational groups from which then Horizon projects grow. We even have now a new concept under Horizon Europe, where 5 operational groups. We didn't make it too complicated. Only 5 operational groups, if they work around a common theme and they are coming from 3 different member states, they can go for a thematic network, getting 3 million for 3 years to further develop what they already are working on, to share their knowledge, maybe to add some other actors to develop that knowledge further and spread it as much as possible. So the advantage is that I've been working really with one foot in Horizon 2020 and one foot in the EIP. And if I see operational groups, how easily they get the real issues in farming into their group, and you compare that with Horizon projects, that's very top down. It's written on beforehand, you shall work on this and that. Thematic networks are an exception, but in most of our Horizon projects, everything is fixed on beforehand. There's not much open for the challenges that you would have in your country or in a number of countries that work together in such a project.
No, just so it's clear, what we identified is there was an Irish group working in a Horizon 2020 project that had developed knowledge transfer steps, like a sort of process that you could follow. This group evolved their company to become a sort of an expertise in this, and we spotted that they had won a tender with our fisheries agency to transfer knowledge on aquaculture, and that they working with our environmental protection agency to sort of develop with the researchers outputs from research projects, and then develop specific knowledge transfer steps tailored to specific end users in the forms that they find usable. And so they're working with their agency to develop that type of program. And we have taken those steps and will be offering a request for tender to try and carry out a similar process in our innovation hub. Okay. Now, it's a little bit we still have to develop it and see how it works, but that's where we've got on our thinking. Obviously, it would be very interesting to hear what others are doing to see if we still have time to kind of develop this tender idea. So yeah, just in case it wasn't what I said wasn't clear. Inge.
Well, was maybe me not understanding exactly, but those are nice things to test out, because as I said, it takes long before you find the silver bullet, and it will not work in every country in the same way. So we all have to do it in our own country and see how it can work. But it's just that I want to express that we have to focus on this. We have to do something about it. The IFTA example was very nice, very measurable, quantifiable, how much is done for impact, which is often for policymakers nice, because that's what they like to see. Yeah? So that was another good example. But okay, in the end, in each country, we should have at least 2 tryouts to move in that direction, to make steps in that direction, that research comes out of the offices and in contact with practice, and can pick up the things that are useful to work further on.
So thank you for this interesting discussion, but I think we should move forward with the agenda, and I would like to invite Andrea to give a summary and from today's insights what we learned today. So Andrea.
Yeah, thank you very much for also giving me the opportunity to have a few words. As I'm from research, I feel tempted to react on this first. Of course, research has quite a long way to go to come closer to what is practice. I fully agree. Still, I would also think that we have to differentiate and to see who does what and how and where and when. When I'm involved in multi-actor projects, I see many learning needs among various actor groups. So it's not only researchers, to my perspective. But still, point taken. I thought from looking at what we did today, it showed very well for all the examples we had, that looking at an AKIS, it gives you so many entry points to identify strengths and weaknesses in a comparative way, and that we can be really happy now, or I think happy. It is fruitful, this AKIS concept. It provides us with a common vocabulary to address things. And it can help us to compare events, processes, results, structures in Ireland with those in Latvia or Estonia. This is a huge learning opportunity. And I think everyone is really eager to make use of this. And this was one of our objectives in the project, that we wanted with such meetings to have an update of what's going on, and a kind of a validation. It's not really a validation, but it's the attempt to start to check and to cross-check what is the information that was provided, how does it matter, what is the reality in the fields. And we had several examples today also where we acknowledge that these realities, they are to a certain degree subjective. Yeah, so we saw a reality described with a Teagasc perspective and people reacting on that. We saw that realities that have been created in the AKIS project with putting national AKISs in a grid, yeah, they do not, they do not match any longer today. Maybe they were already somehow distorted in 2013, but nowadays they are not longer valid. We hesitated to produce this graph. Still, it is a very powerful graph because it helps you to face things, but still you have to overcome and to go one step further. So this is also an appeal. Take perspectives and then discuss them and go one step further with that. That's what we want. We want to encourage learning, making things better, exchanging, and putting knowledge into practice. With this, I close. Yes, when I listened to the Irish case, I just wanted to remind when I learned from the Irish, I understood that you have gone to New Zealand and Australia 20 years ago. So yeah, so there is so much taking up from others and from learning, and we should continue to do this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Inge, you had a question?
Yes, well, to my surprise, my conclusion from reading the SWOTs, each country had to make a SWOT for its CAP analysis, for CAP strategic plans, is that from what the agriculture ministries themselves are saying about their AKIS, and with clear descriptions, because we had a separate section on that,
so
everybody moved a bit in the right direction. Things have changed, but the big lines are still there. Greece, Romania are still in the same corner. Ireland is still in the same corner. So I think there are a few that may have a bit shifted up or down or left, but the big lines are very much the same. This was my impression.
We didn't produce this graph again. We didn't produce this graph again on purpose. I mean, of course, you can see things in the SWOT analysis, but again, it's a SWOT analysis from the ministry. And they may repeat ministerial perspectives. We tried to...
this is made with stakeholders also, often with public consultations even. So it's not the ministry alone who drafts the SWOT. Most of the time, the SWOTs are even outsourced to external consultants. Not everywhere, Hanna.
I was in the process of creating this AKIS concept there, and I definitely know that not a lot is taken from the opinions of during the consultations. A lot of described within the ministry.
Yeah, they hold the last pen before it comes to us, of course, and that's for sure. I've also seen some incoherences between the full SWOT and the summary of the SWOT. I mean, nothing is perfect, but I just wanted to pass the message that, to my surprise, and I think somebody said this after the breakout session, that Latvia and Ireland have a good tradition on advisory services, somebody said. So you don't change this overnight. So this grows over the years. And if you already have a progress, then you go some steps further. And if you have to come from far away, you don't have structures, it's much more difficult. And I think that's probably the reason why the big lines in the graph are still there. Well, this is not the subject, I guess, of today. Don't stay too long on this. I will lower my hand. Voilà.
Thank you. So, and for the closing remarks, I would like to invite Anita Dzelme, who since the beginning of March is also the new EUFRAS vice chairman of the board. So, Anita, if you could sum up and close today's meeting.
Yes, thank you, Līga. Well, as we have seen today, advisors already play an important role in AKIS in our countries. And on the other hand, it's clear that the role could be strengthened. And I think it's very important to work with the explanation of AKIS system, and that it is not something formal in what stakeholders are forced to participate, but it more emphasizes the collaboration and cooperation between the different actors. And in particular, the advisors could contribute more to accelerating the knowledge flows between actors and support more actively the interactive innovation processes. And also, of course, support the CIP implementation on the ground. And well, Also today, the ATO Connect, within which we are working, contributes to this in collaboration with EUFRAS, ELB, Season, and of course with other European initiatives, networks, and projects. And well, on behalf of EUFRAS, I would love to thank all the speakers and all of you for the participation in this first regional AKIS Stakeholders Workshop, and invite you to follow the ATO Connect project on the internet, on the social networks, on the social media, and take part in the various activities offered. Thank you.
Thank you.
And see you. Yeah, see you in next meetings.
Yeah, and also want to congratulate you with your event. I found it very interesting. For me, it's always a big effort to spend half a day to follow these things and prepare a presentation. But I must say it was rewarding and interesting. And I think what you're doing in your project is extremely important, extremely important. So wish you good luck further, and thanks for everything which is done already.
Thank you.
Thank you.